Hello, hello. Good afternoon, morning, wherever you are in the world, maybe evening. Welcome, everyone, for joining us today, building the journey management business case with Maxie. I'll introduce her in a sec. Let everyone connect, join, get the audio right, and flow in. Welcome, everyone. Hello, hello. We'll start in a few, as always, giving you some space to connect, sit back, relax, finish that note of your last meeting, send that one email, and then we should be good to go. It is 3:30 where I am, where Maxie is, I think in Central European time. But maybe you're joining early morning. Thank you for that. Or it's late in your evening. Also kind of you to join all around the world. I know we have a big mix of people joining today. Hundreds of signups, 700, over 700 actually, of people all over the world who will join us live or seeing this later. So we're about to start. This is recorded, so you can share it with your colleagues. All good. Welcome, everyone, for yet another episode of Journey Management, where today we're going to focus on building the journey management business case. And with me, I have a very special guest, is Maxie Schmidt. I hope I pronounced that right, and you can tell me if I did.
Yeah, totally.
Maxie, that's right. Is it good?
Yes.
Nice. It's the second last name of my grandma as well. She is German, and I think you are too. But you currently work for Forrester on the research track for customer experience. But before that, you had quite the career already. You were a management consultant. You were an assistant professor of services management at the School of Business in Ingolstadt, Germany. And you were awarded with an Emerald Literati Best Paper Award. Interestingly enough, if I get it right, and the research was on the frustration that customer experience in loyalty programs is not right,
Yes.
is not working well. Yeah, so that's good. You have opinions, which is always nice to have guests with strong opinions. And today we're going to focus on the journey-based business case. But to warm up a little bit and to also have you share a little bit about your thinking, why journeys are so important to you, and also as Forrester has a journey-centric program running, a program on journey centricity, this ties nicely into that. But what I was inspired by was, I don't know if the people listening in have seen it, a week ago or so, you and Joana published an article on don't let the customer journeys be misunderstood, with a little bit of fun. I don't know if you will be singing for us today, we'll see. But I thought it was a nice way to intro you today to tell about the article, and I'll link in the show notes if people don't know what I mean with the article. But like, what is it about journeys that took your interest? And tell me a little bit about what you wrote, why you wrote it, so we can set the stage for building the business case on journey management today.
Happy to. So thank you for having me. And we all say that we want to talk about customer journeys. We believe that customer journeys are a way to become more customer-centric. And that's really super. But then when we look at actual adaptations, how people use journeys, we realize they actually don't mean journeys when they say journeys. And now this is not a German thing, we should be all correct, but this is about if you aren't using journeys, when you're trying to use journeys, you're missing the customer point of view. So for example, we see people saying the customer journey when they mean the customer life cycle. Right? There isn't only one journey, there's so many journeys across the life cycle. And we see people confuse journeys with business goals, like the conversion journey. Or we see them confuse them with processes or with channels, the digital journey. And we see so much confusion that Joana and I felt it would be nice if we as an industry all agree on what a journey is and how to think about a journey, because that will the only way for us to make sure we all understand journeys the same way and we can actually use them to be customer-centric, not company-centric. So if I can briefly actually pull something up to make that point, the definition of journey should be quite simple, like a customer's path and perceptions as they pursue a goal. The customer could be one person or many people. The path includes interactions with your company, but also with others, with friends and other companies and brands. The perceptions are important because people have emotions during their journeys. They feel that they're getting value, they're not getting value. And then the goal, of course, is the thing that people are trying to accomplish. So unless your journeys are about goal and perception and path and customer, they're probably not journeys. So that's the main thrust of the article that they brought out. And we talked a lot about then how to think about the anatomy of a journey, how to understand path and perception and the other participants in the journey, and how to think about the journey in context of other journeys, because no journey is by itself. It will influence other journeys that customers are on currently or will be on in the future.
That's right. So I think you're preaching to the choir here, but we obviously have a lot of people working in way different types of businesses today joining us. So maybe like just to dig in on that, not all journeys are created equal. Not all goals are on the same level. Maybe it's good to dig in a little bit. And also everyone listening in, there's a big Q&A button down below. Please use it throughout the next 45 minutes or so to ask anything that is on your mind. I'll take some of the questions as we go. And then at the end, I'll get like 20 to 15 minutes left to pick Maxie's brain on anything that we share today. So please use it. Not sure if you've already found it. So you can start using it and say questions and put questions there. You can also use the chat. That will be great. But just digging in with you, Maxie, tell me about like the different levels that we should be thinking about if we talk about journeys.
So maybe before I go there, just 1 second. I am not being the language police here, right? It's not like, oh, journey. The reason why we need to be careful about this concept is when we conflate it with other concepts, we often bring the company view in instead of the customer view, right? So the customer lifecycle, for example, is about a customer's progression through some stages that you have defined as a company. These business goal journeys are about them achieving a company goal, and only a customer journey is about the customer goal. And I just wanted to make this point because sometimes I know Germans can come across as a bit of language police, but that's not the point. And that's why, so when we get back to the goal, a journey needs to be a customer goal. And that's what helps us thinking about the levels, because goals also exist at different levels. I have a visual that might be helpful. Can you see that, the different levels of journeys? This is a B2C example of getting a journey, or a journey of getting a home loan. And the journey of getting a home loan is kind of embedded in the macro journey of buying a home. Underneath is that getting a mortgage or getting the home loan. Within that getting the home loan are then again smaller journeys, for example, applying for that mortgage. And within that smaller journey of applying for the mortgage, again, is a smaller journey using a mortgage calculator. So you go from macro goals to really micro goals and have different levels of where these journeys are. And you know that why that's important? It's important because different people in the organization, even if they all talk about customer goals, they sometimes talk at different levels. So a UX designer who's very much focused on, for example, functionality of a website. Let's assume a UX designer who's focused on that. They might talk about the journey, but mean the micro journey of, for example, using a mortgage calculator. Maybe a customer experience person who's focused on thinking about how to integrate different people in the organization in that journey might be focusing more on the getting a mortgage or buying a home journey. So these journey levels are a good way for us to realize what level we're actually talking about, and that these levels ladder up to each other. And only if I can accomplish my goal on the micro level can I accomplish my goal on the higher levels.
So help me, Maxie. If I'm a big business, like a bank that issues mortgages, should I start with 4 levels of journeys from the get-go? Is there like, because the life cycle is even like the bigger umbrella that is above that? Should I start there? Like how would you advise me to think about this?
So mostly when we see clients use this, they're thinking more around like 3 levels, right? Because of complexity. And here's this maybe where my Germanness came through. I couldn't do it under 4 levels. But this is really more an exercise of showing how these goals ladder up to each other. But if you have 3 levels, that's fine. And as you say, for example, when you're a bank, you're thinking about getting a mortgage. But you need to still be conscious of the fact that that journey that might be the one that you're really thinking about is embedded in a bigger journey that's buying a home. And you need to figure out how that mortgage application journey relates to the bigger journey, and how the things that happen in the bigger journey, like buying a home, as you're working with a realtor, as you're working to find the house, as you're working with a financial advisor, will also affect your mortgage journey.
Right. Okay, so this is a perfect setup for today. And Kristen Shepard also asked a question, and this is a nice segue for what we're going to do. How do you get started in your own company and prioritize the customer journey to create if you're just getting started as an organization? So, of course, this is a good one, starting with the blank slate. But what we want to do today is focus on building the business case, right, for journey management. And we're going to do it from the journey. And when we were chatting on like, hey, what will be the angle that we want to bring today to the webinar, you said, I actually have a one-pager journey business case. I have a framework, a way of thinking about this that is actually really useful. So we want to dig into that. But before we're going to do that, there's something else that you said people need to consider as well. And that's going to be the meat of today. There is a mapping of the internal decision-making journey that you can do to really understand how, whether you have a 3 or 4 level journey framework with all these beautiful insights and decisions that you can make on it, how that would influence decision-making in your company. Because if you don't know that, then you can do all this work, but you don't know what you're impacting. So that is what we're going to get at. But before we do, I just wanted to hear your thoughts on, and maybe you can answer Kristen's question a little bit as well, is like, how do you get started with this? How do you make the business case for journeys? And then maybe like take a spin on it. If you're a starting organization versus like established large enterprise company with thousands of employees, how would you do that? Like walk us through what is in your mind if you're willing to do that.
Yes. So there's, Kristen, in your question, there's something very specific. How would we prioritize which journeys to start from? That somehow requires, though, that you know which journeys are there, right? So most companies start from a point of trying to figure out what are all the kinds of journeys that our customers go through. Now I think about a big company that we've just recently written a case study about, E.ON. And E.ON just went ahead. What are the kinds of top interactions that people have with us? Let's just start there. And they identified the top, I think, 8 or 9 journeys that cover 80 or 90% of interactions. And then from that framework, they could start prioritize what they want to focus on always and what they want to focus on only ever so often, or because it's just recently important. So thinking about giving people internally an idea of there is the overall customer lifecycle. Underneath that customer lifecycle are many customer journeys, and some of them are important to focus on. I think of this as like, this is a view into my mind, as a closet. Like a wardrobe, a closet of journeys. You open the closet and you have all of these journeys that are there, bigger journeys, smaller journeys. Some of them are sparkly and amazing, and some of them are ugly. So you take out the ugly ones, you polish them, you do something with them, improve them, and then you put them back and they sparkle. So that's how I think about it. Now, the question is, how do you know whether it's sparkling? And Jochem, I can share very briefly, because I figured that this question might come a way how to think about whether journeys are sparkling. And that's prioritizing them by two very simple things, like probably just not very surprising to you, but prioritizing by impact and feasibility. So you could take this slide, you could print it out, and you could, for any journey you have, just assess the impact and the feasibility as low, medium, or high, and then think about which journeys you want to start with. And you wanted to probably start with a few journeys that have high impact and high feasibility. But also keep in the back of your mind some journeys that might have high impact, but lower feasibility. Those are journeys that you might need to plan on working later, but you need to get started now.
So just in E.ON's example of those 8 journeys, were they like macro journeys where they had the big picture right, but they have no clue about the details? Or were there like also different levels, just to paint the picture for what you have in your mind?
Different ones. So we talk about macro journeys like, for example, I pay or I join. But underneath, there were different kinds of these journeys, right? So there are different flavors, if you so will.
Right. Okay. So over to your thinking on how to make the actual business case for all these journeys in your framework. You want to walk us through how you would typically approach it?
Yes. So we talked about the fact that we need to improve journeys. And to do that, we need to make a business case for these journey improvements. But also, and this is what I think is really promising, making a business case for journey improvements, it's a much easier way to make the case for customer experience overall. Many of us are still trying to do the what's a point of NPS worth kind of thing. And while that's sexy and interesting, it's not easy to do. There are lots of assumptions, and people tend to find fault with those assumptions. However, if you go to the level of an individual journey, where it's much more granular and contained, then you can make a business case more easily. And if you do that for a number of journeys, you can then add up what you've achieved and make the business case for customer experience that way. So I think there's a second advantage of thinking about a journey-based business case. So just as we're talking about this.
Right. And we're talking about improvements, right? This is also like a little nuance. It's like improving what is already there. I mean, the journey happens, whether you're deliberately designing and organizing around it or not, it happens. We are buying a mortgage. We're doing all these task journeys. We're not even considering that we're part of these journeys, but like we want to get that mortgage as a customer, as a consumer. And then you as a bank want to understand what the journey is like. So it happens already. But what you're saying is let's improve first to make the business case versus like go all the way to like this big gap in our knowledge and figure out what the journey design is. Is that the right way to think about it?
Right.
Yes. Okay. Can you clarify feasibility as well? I saw some questions on the
chat
on that.
I was just going to say, can I maybe briefly? There was one question that I think we can very quickly take to get it out of the way. So I just shared the impact and feasibility slide, and one of the attendees asked, how do you even measure that? Of course, you can measure this quantitatively. You can create ranges. What is low impact on customer? What's high impact on customer? We recommend that you use a few sub-criteria, and there is a blog that we're happy to link on afterwards that shows what some of the criteria are. For example, impact to customer is how often it happens to customers, how much it changes their lives, what their emotions are, those kinds of things. So there's some sub-criteria. But what we recommend is to just start with saying, let's talk about two different journeys, comparing them to each other. Is the customer impact of that journey higher, or is the customer impact of that journey higher? So that's just back to that one question.
Got it. And then feasibility, how would you?
Similar. I mean, there's, again, I can mention the sub-criteria, or we can share afterwards what the sub-criteria are for some of these. Now, what we sometimes hear is that the customer experience team doesn't necessarily have all the data. And I know that you're not all customer experience professionals on this call, but not one of you or any of you probably don't have all of the data to estimate the internal support and awareness for the journey, the investment measurability, the complexity, organizational resources available, and your own resources. But when you come to your colleagues with a prioritization framework like this, it shows that you're considering a really broad way of prioritizing. You're not just thinking about the customer. You're also thinking about the business and employees, for example, and you're thinking about the feasibility. So that's why we recommend going broad in the kinds of criteria you use to estimate this, but then not worry too much about the exact quantification in each of those little dimensions, but rather do a comparison across different journeys, maybe even a stack ranking. Which journey has the most customer impact? Which journey has the highest internal awareness and support, and so on and so on.
I'm very practical. Like, does it also mean like even if you don't even have like these journeys mapped out, but you have at least you have a name or a beginning and the end in mind for each of these journeys? This can be as simple as like jotting it down in a spreadsheet, almost prioritizing this roughly, and then know where to start. Or do you actually need to have all these journeys like in a state of like, okay, we actually mapped out some of it. We know here's the data. We got some insights. Like, is there a golden rule here that we should be thinking of, or is it more messy than I might hope?
You always think about what's the alternative. The alternative is that you take any journey and work on it.
Right.
If you are just starting with customer experience, that might be good enough because anything is okay. Mostly that's not the place you're at. Mostly the place is that you as a team don't have all that many resources. The organization doesn't have all that many resources, and you need to put a best foot forward. And then depending on how much you know about the journeys, it will be easier for you to assess these different things. For example, the business impact of the journey. Of course, it's easy to assess if you have mapped it properly, if you have metrics. But you can also assess it as a high, medium, low, discussing with others if you don't have much data about it. Yeah. So this is really a practical way of thinking about prioritizing journeys, not getting stuck in a prioritization scheme that you can somehow give each journey a very exact score. You just want to avoid working on journeys that are duds or that aren't really helpful. Or you want to avoid working on journeys where somebody really pushes for it, but you know that is definitely not a good journey to work on.
Clear. If we, I want to double click on metrics. I know you have strong opinions and also a vision on how to work with metrics in this journey, but I think that comes later. Like if we zoom out again, one step back. So now you know which journeys you want to make the business case around to start massaging, to bring this to the attention of the rest of the organization, to start investing in a journey-centric program or start to invest in journey management. So, okay, so we got our journey, then what? Or we got our journeys, maybe, if you're lucky. Like, then what?
Let's talk about it. The journey business case requires you to know a few things about the journey. So let me walk you through this. We're using, again, the home loan journey as an example, but this could be really any journey. Right? This is just an easy one for me to use. So the journey is you find your home, you find a lender, apply for the loan, submit your documents, get the decision, buy a home, and make a first payment. Ideally, you make it all the way through, right? You might actually not make it all the way through, but let's just assume you want to make it all the way through. So if you, for example, have prioritized that the home loan journey is one that's important to change, then the first step you need to be asking yourself, what is even success for that journey? So what do we want to achieve as a company, for example, with that journey? What do we know customers want to achieve with that journey? And this is specific success. This is not about general revenue or so. This is about, for example, people make it through the loan journey. They actually buy or they get the mortgage. And potentially there's little cost to sell for us as a company. And from the customer point of view, it might be it's easy and quick. But the first thing that's often missing is a very specific idea of what's the success of that journey. When you know what success for a journey is and how to measure it, you can then think about where in the journey do we already know that success is more or less likely to occur. So where are the pain points, for example, in the journey? Or where are points where we could make an improvement to a journey to make it even better? So what are the signals that we want to improve along the journey? And when we know these signals, for example, in this case, hey, the application phase is a problem, then we can think about what change could we make to make that application phase better so that our signals are improving and our overall success is improving. And so, for example, in this case, you might say, hey, why don't we add a mortgage calculator to this? Because a mortgage affordability calculator would really help us not get all of these customers in the journey that really can't afford it, or it would also help us with customers actually proceeding through the application phase, right? Let's say there is, for example, drop-offs. And then when you know what change you want to make, then comes the hardest part. And that's what I said earlier. It's easier for a journey than for the overall company. That's making a hypothesis on how the change you're making will affect the signal metrics and how that will affect success. So that's how
what you're actually saying is like, and I think this is good because a lot of the companies that I speak to, the metrics are clear, right? This is not right. This is going south. This needs to go up. This needs to like hit this target. So there's always clear indications of what to look for, especially on the macro level, right? This journey of obtaining a home loan, this is like a macro journey, right? If you will, or a milestone journey in your terminology. Mm-hmm. But then knowing from the business perspective, typically from leadership, you have a good indication of what's not right and where in this journey it is. But then what you're saying is you're going to use that to actually go one level deeper and start to understand, like with the journey, if we make changes, if we're going to improve it, if we're going to change it, how would we actually impact the metric through updating, improving, managing the journey?
And I think this is where we see a gap. Yes, generally it's clear what the company wants to achieve. Generally, it's clear that the home loan journey is important. Then there's usually some clarity where it breaks down. But to be as disciplined as defining very specifically which success metrics do I want to affect? What are the signals that I would have to see early on for those success metrics? And then how would the change affect that? That kind of discipline is not often in place because it requires a very specific deliberation. And that's always what measurement does. It requires you to be more precise and it requires you to truly define what you mean. So then in this case, for example, you would say, no, we really want to think about the cost to sell of journeys, which means we need to make sure we eliminate contacts, telephone contacts, which means where are the most telephone contacts in the application phase? Okay, how can we figure out whether the telephone contacts are happening? They're not calling us. So this is probably not rocket science, but actually doing this for journeys is the kind of discipline that I think we need to start doing more.
The other thing that I would say I observe many companies do is then they start from the top. Then they have this like basic understanding of maybe a higher level journey, but then you need to understand like 2 levels down what's really going on to know for sure that you're impacting the right thing, that you're able to move the metric. Is that also what you see, or is it yeah, okay.
That's why the linkage we showed earlier for the different levels, it's quite important to have that thought, especially because something really interesting happens with the journeys. When you think about the micro journeys, they're often building blocks for various journeys. So think about this affordability calculator. That might be part of other journeys as well, where you have to somehow calculate something if you can afford it, or a password reset. So many of these micro journeys are part of bigger journeys. And unless you understand not just which micro journeys are part of your journey, but also where other journeys are that use these micro journeys, you'll probably underestimate the impact of these micro journeys.
That's another way to put it at a business case, right? We have a lot of big banks as our customers. And what we see is like the KYC journey, the journey of becoming a customer. Then part of that is like, who are you? Are you really who you say you are? And you would be amazed that many banks have these in 5 different teams, 5 versions of that KYC journey. And then they realize like, no, this is like the tiny micro journey that is playing a role in like making an account, becoming a customer. And when they realize that, removing all the non-journeys that are not good and focus on one, that's another way of putting a business case, right? You're removing the unnecessary ones and focus on the one that's performing well and do more of that, which is crazy to think. But in large companies, there's many similar journeys in place. Have you seen examples like that in your work as well?
When we talk to professionals in the industry, that's actually one big challenge. It is that sometimes the smaller journeys don't seem so exciting to fix. So there's many different parts of your organization, and each of them attempts their own fix, for example, for the password reset journey, which means that you have completely disjointed journeys for customers instead of noticing that there's a journey that appears across the company, across micro journey that appears across many different customer journeys. And that's why it actually is more important to fix. That's why when we go back to the prioritization framework that I mentioned earlier, I didn't say this, but the cross-journey impact, that number 4 on the top, that's a very important thing to think about journeys. Does this journey have an effect on following journeys or on parallel journeys? Like if you've heard me speak about journeys and parallel journeys before, you've heard me maybe say the word collateral damage. And you might have heard me talk about the Bank of Montreal example, that they did find that small journeys like password reset, if they went poorly, they could affect large journeys like loan journeys, to the point that customers would stop the loan journey because they were not trusting necessarily a bank that this would work out because they've just seen a bad password reset journey. So when we prioritize journeys, the more mature you are in your approach to journey and journey centricity, the more you need to think about the cross-journey impact as you're prioritizing journeys and as you make the business case for them.
Got it. Can we, I'll take a few questions from people because I think that tie nicely into what you're saying. So going up and down the level of hierarchy, Vitor asked, like, what is the trigger to go deeper in the macro journey? I gave one example of like, okay, the metric and then the journey is not clear enough, so we need to dig in. But like, what is in your mind the trigger to start structuring a business or a way of thinking and go deeper towards complex journey details?
So maybe I can start from the other side, because that's two sides of the coin, right? One of the big problems is that we think about the narrow journey and don't think about the journey it's embedded in. So, for example, if I was somebody who just cared about creating a mortgage calculator, but I wouldn't know how it's embedded in the application, then I don't know how to create a good mortgage calculator journey. So each bigger journey gives the context for the smaller journey, which means in the reverse that each smaller journey is the way to make the bigger journey come to life. So they work together, these levels, and there's usually different people working at different levels. And having a framework like that helps these people to talk to each other and helps to understand the dependencies between these levels and the different things that they're working on.
Got it. I hope, Vitor, your answer was questioned. I know this is a big thorny topic, maybe like for a whole episode, but let's go and continue. Like, what I also would like to know, what, in your opinion, and I think this is a nice way to get you to the ownership and who is working on this. Lena asked, like, do you have any recommendations how to get a buy-in or understanding of journeys and experience on an executive level? What is the right level to bring the knowledge to them? Like, they don't care about the KYC details in that journey or the insights, but they do care about the impact it has on the business. Well, how would you do that? Like, bottom up, top down. What is the right level? Well, what are we talking about, Maxie?
Giving executives a sense of all of the different journeys that their customers are going through, even just the overwhelming amount. So I'm thinking of a picture of a journey atlas, and if you give me a second, I'll pull it up to show what I mean. Because the idea that you're helping figure out what are the top journeys that they can that represent top customer things that they do, right? So not necessarily the journeys that are your life cycle, but the things that customers do, like in the Eon example. And when you have a journey atlas, now I'm actually just putting it up. So give me 1 second so I can show it to you.
For people listening and who are using TheyDo, this is the term I think you guys use for what we call the journey framework, right? It's like sometimes it's the life cycle, sometimes it's a B2B or B2B, B2C framework where all your journeys together make up this hierarchy. Or your closet example, right? Make up for the whole closet of journeys.
Yeah, exactly, the closet, yes. So thank you for the closet metaphor. I think you can you see an image of a B2C journey atlas?
Yes.
Right. So this kind of idea that you have a journey atlas where you have the stages of the life cycle on top, but then you can show leadership what are the different kinds of journeys that your customers are going through and how well are they going. So this is basically the closet. The green journeys are sparkly, the red journeys are ugly. That kind of understanding is, for example, what a company in Ireland they built. That really helped get everybody on board with the different kinds of journeys that people are going through, and also that there's actually some similarity in the kinds of journeys that people do. And now what you can do is, this is something that Sage Software did a while ago. They showed for each of those journeys what effect they had on other journeys. So you could then, basically, you could do this on this part where you could put maybe a big frame on journeys that have a big collateral effect on others. Or you could show how journeys are repeating across this different journey atlas. So depending on what you want to show, you would go about this. So the first thing is to show the complexity about how it hangs together. Second thing might be to show journeys that are repeated across a journey atlas, aka dear executives, KYC does matter. Password reset does matter because it affects a lot of other things. And the third is just to show the picture of the health of this journey overall, and then that we want to focus on the ones that are unhealthy, for example.
Right. Yeah, the other thing I've seen is that we also layer on the business metrics simply. Say like, okay, we have CSAT NPS from CX, but we also have our leading and lagging business metrics, like revenue is one that we want to show in a certain stage, or conversion rates in a certain stage that actually are important right now for this quarter, for this year, or for this part of the business. And now look at what the journeys are that sit below that. All right. So want to switch gears a bit, and I know there's a lot of more questions coming. But we promised another thing is like, once you have this up and running, once you know how to make the business case for one journey, for bringing the journey and to start impacting the business by working for the customer, right? Let's not forget why this is so important. It's not about the business. It's more like understanding what the customer actually goes through and where the opportunities for improvement and for innovation for them are that directly impact the business in a positive way. But to do that, all of this work will be going to waste if you don't understand how to impact the business decisions that are already being made and what are the forums where they are being made. So I think that will be the interesting connection to say, like, sure, we're uncovering it, we're linking it. But now that we have that, what do we do with it? Like, is it a PowerPoint you're swing over to the executives? I don't think so. I think it's way more sophisticated that how are we bringing then the insights that we have, the opportunities that we see to the table so that we do get prioritization going, so that we do get impact on the decisions that we're making. So this is a long-winded intro to ask you to set us up for that. And I think you have a beautiful model for that, or a beautiful example for that. And maybe we can just talk through how you would advise companies on doing this.
Yes, this is about customer experience teams, marketing teams, digital teams that are trying to make changes and they're trying to influence decision making. What I've noticed over the years is that even though we're very customer centric, or rather we ask everybody else to be very customer centric, and we go around with like a banner, customers important and customer journeys are important, rarely do I see us using the same tools for our internal customers. Because when you think about it, you have internal customers and you want to make sure that they achieve their goals, but also that they achieve their goals in a customer-centric way, which means that you need to start thinking about what are the kinds of decision-making journeys that stakeholders have. And to do that, you can repurpose your customer journey map. Like this would be a really good start of a customer journey map, like a template. You have the customer, the goal, you have the path of the customer, the participants that are part of the journey, which is you, but other others, and perceptions of customers. Right? By the way, this is a template from our new journey report. If you're interested in that, feel free to go there and pick it up. Now, we can apply this internally. So think about a decision that is being made that you think you need to influence. Ideally, think about a decision that has been made very like, oof, why didn't they do this properly? Like if I just had been on board. And by the way, why do we need to influence decisions? Because we don't want to be holding, like kind of trying to get rid of the effects of the decision. You want to get early on into the decision to affect decision making rather than afterwards try to figure out through feedback what's going on and then say, hey, this is something wrong, right? So if we intervene when the decision is being made, then we don't have to worry about the results of the poor decision. And the way to think about this journey for an internal stakeholder is this. This is actually something from a workshop that we've done. So I'm showing you an actual journey map that you could create for an internal stakeholder. In this case, the pricing team. I have a background in pricing. So that was one that spoke to me. And the pricing team is supposed to create a profitable pricing for product subscription. And if you're thinking about customer centricity, of course, it's very important that they use customer data. It's very important that they understand the impact. It's very important that they make sure that the different departments involved are actually working together to do this in a way that's customer centric. But that doesn't always happen. Now, to improve the chance of that happening, you need to first understand that decision-making journey. So using the same kind of framework, you can see the customer and the goal. I just talked about that. You can see the path that the pricing team takes to make that decision and to get ready to launch that new pricing. You can see who they're working with, the participants, and you can see their own perceptions. And what you can then do when you've mapped this, you can figure out two things. First, you can figure out, okay, these poor stakeholders, how can you make it easier or faster or better for them to use customer experience insights and data? Our gut reaction often is to say, oh, I got a survey. How do I make it actionable? How do I share this with people? How do I push stuff on people? How do I share insights, actionable insights at people, right? But people aren't working like that. If I told you right now how to make an awesome cake, It wouldn't land because you're not here to hear about cakes, you're here about journeys. But if I tell you how to make an awesome cake just before you bake it, more likely that you make an awesome cake. So we need to find out when are people baking their cakes and making their decisions so that you can then inform them in the right moment. And this is what this helps. So you can figure out where are stakeholders currently using data and how easy is it for them? And also what are missed chances? Where are they not using data? So for example, here they're using data in the stage where they're looking at analyzing current data and feedback from customers. You can see this in this step here. Now, how easy is it for them to get to that data? Do you make it easy for them, or do they have to dig through some kind of SharePoint to get to that data? If you know that this is what they're doing, you can help them get data and feedback from customers on current pricing. Or you can say, for example, that there is a stage where they're looking to estimate customer impact right here. Now, if you know this is happening, you can help them with that, because otherwise they're probably going to do this on gut check. Oh, customer impact, oh, kind of low, medium, high. But you can provide data to make that better. Or in the end, when they're, for example, when it's about going live and the people who are doing this are kind of already done with this, they want to hurry along, they're fed up with this process, you can make sure that you bridge the gap to the contact center team that has to explain this change to customers. So how to best enable the contact center team to explain a change so the customers can understand it. So by using a framework, yeah, go ahead.
Think about this, because I love this example, and I think like it's such an easy example. Like everyone will go like, yeah, we should do this. This is for a specific project, right? Big one, pricing change. We're going to do a big project. There's a big initiative. People are knowing about it. But there's many more decisions going on. There is the known ones. There's the prioritization fora, like a QBR, the quarterly business review, right? There's annual planning that everyone needs to submit their plans to. There's all these kind of like recurring prioritization stages in a company. Do you think people should be mapping those out as well? Is there like, no, once you have a few of these, that is when you start to understand it? Because for CX, specifically, people in customer experience, this is a known problem, right? We do a lot of hard work analyzing. We get the data, but is it used? We don't know. Can we influence people? How do we do that? There's a lot of meetings and back and forth and a lot of like, I know you, so you will be trusting my data. But my question is, if we start zooming out, like, aren't there a handful of decision-making journeys that we should be considering always as a company? Mapping them out, understanding exactly where the gaps are and where you can have impact to do this properly. Is that what you're saying? Or do you think it's better to only think about it from big change initiatives that are already running to be mapping that out?
So it really depends on who you are, right? If you think about all the decisions, 100% of decisions that are being made, right? Let's say this is 100% of cakes being baked. Half of these cakes are baked in secret. You won't find out about it. So there's no point in worrying about it. You might want to educate people on customer experience so that they keep you in mind, but you're not part of that. And it's okay. You can't figure it all out. Then there's this other half of things that are getting done at a regular cadence. So for example, strategy planning. At HubSpot, the voice of customer team actually reports into the strategy team. So they are the ones who bring insights to the strategy planning process so that strategy planning can be working based on voice of customer, right? So that's a known process that happens once a year, and they feed that. But if you, for example, are working together mostly with one set of stakeholders, and you could think about their journeys, maybe they have a recurring stand-up meeting every week where they make decisions that are more short-term that you could feed. Or you know when they're redoing their maybe the annual planning. So depending on how much influence you have, how many stakeholders you know, just start with what you can do. And that might be just to inform the digital team every week about feedback that customers have given so that they can use it in their stand-up planning. Or it might be something like HubSpot is doing. So this is a kind of a game of what can you do practically rather than trying to accomplish everything.
Isn't it also a chicken egg problem where we say like, if we know how the decision-making processes work, then making the business case for a journey management approach would make more sense because we know where we can influence the decision, where the data is unclear or needed. And then looking back at how we built the business case of what is actually going on right now? Or is it more like you should do this always in parallel? This is your thing while you make a business case for impacting the business at the same time? Or does one really go in front of the other?
You always need to make the case for any improvement you're suggesting. And yes, this seems basic, but we do still see this, that teams aren't thinking about all the things that they should be thinking about. And I show you a template in a second how to think about that. And now to the chicken and egg thing, I think we're holding ourselves back if we are thinking like that, right? Let's influence the decisions we can influence. Let's make the case wherever we can, but let's do it at a level like a journey. So it's more specific. We have very specific stakeholders in place. We have specific problems. We can estimate benefits. We can estimate costs. That just makes it much easier for us.
Shall we, you wanted to show something? I want to look at it. I think everyone wants to look at it. Maybe do that first and then weave in a few questions for the last 10 to 15 minutes.
Happy to. I mentioned that when we want to make improvements, I often talk to people who say that, I don't think we're really thinking about all the things we should be thinking about. So here's a quick template that you can use. You can use it first for any idea that the team comes up with. Just going through these three things: the challenge, the urgency, the proposed change, and owners and metrics. So this is for the team internally, for the CX team internally, to think about different initiatives that you want to propose. You can also use this as a communication tool to stakeholders, which is kind of further down the line when you have more information about these improvements. So let me show you what will be in there. The first thing, challenge and urgency, is around what is the pain point you're trying to fix? What is the impacts that this pain point has? Any evidence you have why this is important? And then, of course, most important, I guess, is why should you worry about this now? Because we know a lot of these pain points have been existing for as long as the company has existed. So why are you focusing on this now? Is there something that's changed in the competitive landscape, in the customer expectations, in your abilities that makes now a good time to tackle this? The second thing is the proposed change. So what is the improvement to the journey? What change does this require? What is the estimated cost and duration? What are constraints and what's the scope? Just to be specific. And again, this might not be rocket science, but if you can't fill in every of those boxes for every initiative that you propose, you are not doing yourself a service. And the last thing is when you talk about who owns this, what are the dates, and most importantly, what metrics should we see change based on that change? And this is where we go back to the framework that I talked about earlier, the success and signal metrics. And many of you, we've talked before, and you know this framework of Forrester. But this is where you can show that you have a really good idea of the specific success metrics that you think this will affect. Not, you know what, the new calculator will make the application journey more successful or the home loan journey more successful. No, the affordability calculator will help us decrease the cost to serve and will help us increase the number of customers who convert in the journey, very specifically. So these I think 13 boxes, it is 13 boxes, you should be able to fill them out for each improvement you want to make. Maybe less in detail in the beginning, but then as you use this as a communication tool, that's your start of your presentation.
I love that. I think this is a super valuable framework for people to have all the bits and pieces to make a compelling case. I want to ask a question that is coming from many angles, actually. So I'll take a few. Lotta Salminen and Jeff Hoekwater, if I pronounce that right, saying similar things. It's like, it seems this is a great way to make the business case for journey management. But to quote Lotta, if you would have to justify or sell the idea of journey management, right? Journey centricity, managing your closet, and like bringing that to the company, to top management before you have any journeys. How would you think about that? How would you use this business case, or what are the key selling points to use? And Jeff says the same, like, how about the business case of doing journeys in the first place? Like, how would you crack open Pandora's box for that discussion? What are the things that you would focus on?
So we've seen that the people who are able to make the case for journeys don't do this at a theoretical, conceptual level. They identify a journey. They show that by using customer centricity principles, by using journey centricity, by using the tools and the frameworks, that they can actually identify improvements to a journey that are good for the business and the customer. And then they say to their colleagues, guys, we have this repeatable framework. of taking a journey and sprucing it up, right? Making a better cake, if you will, making it more sparkly. We could apply this to others as well. And it's a thinking approach. So you need to do two things, right? You need to show that you have a repeatable approach, and you need to show that you have shown results. So yes, at some point you will get buy-in to do more, kind of to work in a more journey-centric way. Fine. But you probably need to start by showing that this is a superior way of thinking about these journeys.
Nice. By showing results. So how do you avoid getting stuck in discussions about who owns the journey? That's a spicy topic from Martin Klitzy. What have you seen? What works? What doesn't? Like, is it even important on the start?
We know we see actually that when we talk about measurement, journey measurement, the very next question that then comes is, if we have a journey health score, for example, remember the journey atlas with the journey health score, the green, yellow, red, who cares? And that is when we then do have to have a discussion around ownership of journeys. And that's when you see that in companies that are working in a journey-centric way, my colleague Joana has written a lot of different research about this, you do see that they actually do have journey owners. Often these journey owners are senior people who have a right to veto decisions, but then they also have, for example, journey stage owners, step owners. They have people who bring together the performance metrics for journeys. So there are definitely a number of roles that you want to fill over time as you become more journey-centric in your approach.
Right. I always have a love-hate relationship with ownership in like specifically, like I've seen it go bad in skilled agile organizations where there's like product owners and all they do is really like project manage the backlog, to be fair. I hope I'm not offending anyone, because product management, on the contrary, is like all about creating value for the customers and understanding how to rally the teams. And I think it's a similar trend I see in journey management right now, where journey owners can be beautifully aligned with the business and the customer, but they can also do in more toxic organizations this.
Or like the journey as the new silo, of course, right? Every time you have that, it can happen. That's why I think what's really interesting is there are some organizations, for example, Ingredion. They make ingredients, for example, for chips and medications. So quite a while ago, they thought about what are the key journeys that their customers are going through. And then they thought about what would make these journeys successful for customers and for Ingredion. Then they identified what are the kinds of things that the different departments can do. So, for example, if you take a new product journey, when a company comes to Ingredion and says, "Oh, my chips need to be crispier," right? They need to create a new ingredient. That process requires supply chain and engineering, and it requires a lot of people involved, account managers, and they all have to play a role in the journey. So now it's not necessarily about the journey ownership as such, but it's understanding about how each of those different departments plays a role in the journey. And if I do that across multiple journeys, then I can every function can now say, okay, across all these journeys, I'm responsible there and there and there. And that's what Ingredion had done. They had then created functional scorecards so that each part of the organization, the metrics that they were measuring themselves against, were informed by the different journeys that they were affecting.
Right. This is a good example. This is how you want it to be, right? And there's not really ownership. There's people responsible for certain parts of the journey of measuring, aligning, and getting everyone to see the same thing, but they don't own it. Maybe they can make decisions on their part, but it's not like it's my journey. So I think that is it's a good nuance to call out. So I think we have room for a few more. If you can go on for a bit, Maxie, on the questions. No particular order. Zubair, I hope I say it right. We already have buy-in from stakeholders across the business. Impressive, that's good. What is the best way to communicate progress when we have limited resources?
Are you asking how to make progress or to communicate it?
I think he asked, or she asked about communicating progress.
Because if you are making progress, it's easy to communicate it. You're communicating it through success stories. And ideally, you ask the stakeholders you've helped to communicate success. You're just the enabler, right? Graciously. If you're asking how to make progress, then it's more about focusing, and then we're talking prioritizing journeys again, which we talked about earlier. I hope that was helpful. I would say that one of the big challenges we see is that people think about how to make the case. They think about what is the hypothesis on the changes, but then afterwards, they don't measure. So you do need to have a discipline that maybe 1 hour each week, 2 hours each week. You look at projects you have supported and you follow them and you see what impact have you made. You actually go out of your comfort zone, you go to stakeholders and you say, what have we helped you with? What can we communicate? And you'll actually see that they're probably more than open to help you with these success metrics, because they're usually success metrics for themselves or success stories for themselves. So go out there and ask stakeholders to help you create success stories. Sounds maybe a bit basic, but I don't think that I see this often enough.
Now, the other thing that we've seen is companies doing this successful is they actually break down the journeys into these opportunities and then into solutions. And they link that to actual progress, maybe sometimes even integrated into their delivery teams. But what they capture is like, is this thing done? Did it meet the requirements? Did it ship? Did it actually impact? And the impact is actually traced back to the journey. Where the solution goes live, you know where it happened in the journey, you know how it linked to that specific metric that you're showing success against. And then you have two sides of the equation. It's like, how did the metric evolve? And what have we shipped? And the journey is connecting the dots. And I think that is the way that I'm now seeing many companies do this. But of course, it requires you to have these journeys and it requires you to have the process in it. But yeah, starting small and having a rigorous cadence on this is important. Weekly, monthly, quarterly,
and you know
setting it up, committing to it, and doing it.
People internally mostly want to know they can trust you. They want to know that you have a good idea of what success metrics you will affect. You have a good idea of how they might move, and you actually have checked whether that's true. Imagine you've done this 2-3 times and you've proven that what you predicted came true. Next time, it will be so much easier to make a case because people are like, oh, you know what? If Jochem tells me, I know I can trust him. So they just want you to express the discipline that you have. And all of the templates we talked about today, they are for you to have the discipline and to express it to the outside, to create trust in your work.
If you want to start, this is my last question. If you want to start, Karen Hayden asks, what would be your advice on setting up a team or a program to actually drive this so that it doesn't become like this one-off thing that you do for one project or one initiative, but it's really like setting a foundation in the right way? What are the basics you need, she asks. And I think it's more about team, program, people that you actually need to get it done. Is that easy for you to answer in 1 minute? Like, what are the basics you need?
No, I can answer this in 10 seconds. I think there's a webinar that Karen should listen to that just went live. It's a webinar about how Eon built their program, because they have such a wonderful case study of how to do this from scratch and how to do it very successfully. So may I recommend to look at the webinar in the show notes, because I can't do it justice in a minute, but that webinar does it justice.
We'll find it, put it in the show notes, link it to everyone. There are so many more questions. We're going to try and answer a few asynchronous to follow up when the recording goes live. But to thank you today, Maxie, this was phenomenal. Thank you everyone for joining and all these crazy questions that are still coming in. So we're going to answer a few more. Anything you want to share back with the audience, or where can they find you, or what is more important to follow you or check you on before we leave? Anything you want to share before we close?
I'd love to be connected with all of you on LinkedIn. Feel free to message me. I'm really passionate about this topic, as is my colleague Joana, and we're interested in, as an industry, getting it right. And if you already have a great success story, consider looking at an application for Forrester's Customer Obsession Awards. You have 10 more days, so that you, and I can also put the link in the show notes. So we'd love to hear your success stories.
Wow, that's cool. That's a great call to action to end. Usually we get like, find me here, find me there, but like, submit your success stories. That is great. Thank you for joining me, Maxie. This was fantastic. We'll link to all the notes or the things that we discussed in the show notes, and we're going to get your screens of the framework so people can actually start implementing this. So this was super useful. It was my pleasure to have you. And to everyone listening in, thank you for joining us, and see you next time.
Talk soon. Bye.
Bye.